Welcome to AppSec Unlocked, the podcast that demystifies application security one episode at a time. My name is Edwin Kwan, and I'm your host for today. And we're diving into a topic that might surprise you. You're using more open source than you realize. Get ready for an eye-opening episode that could change the way you think about your applications. Let's start with a reality check. At a recent conference where I presented on open source security, I noticed a common misconception. Most attendees believed their organizations use some open source components, but they estimated it to be around 30% or less of their applications. Boy, were they in for a surprise. The truth is far more staggering. Industry reports suggest that a whopping 85% of modern applications are built from open source components. And if you're working with JavaScript web applications, that number skyrockets to 97%. But hold on to your hats, folks, because my analysis shows that these numbers might even be conservative. For Java applications, I found the percentage of open source software to be around 98%. That's right, 98%. But here's the kicker. About 3/4 of these open source components aren't even explicitly incorporated. They're what we call transitive dependencies. Dependencies of dependencies that sneak into your code base without you even realizing it. Let me share a real-world example that illustrates just how pervasive open source is. Remember the Log4j vulnerability that shook the tech world in December 2021? Log4j is a popular Java logging framework, and a critical vulnerability was discovered that could allow attackers to execute arbitrary code on affected systems. What was shocking wasn't just the severity of the vulnerability, but how many organizations were affected without even realizing they were using Log4j. It was often buried deep in their dependency trees, used by other libraries they depended on. This incident was a wake-up call for many companies about the true extent of their open source usage. And with the rise of generative AI in software development, that remaining 2% of custom code might not even be written by your developers. It's a brave new world out there, folks. AI-assisted coding tools like GitHub Copilot are becoming increasingly popular. These tools often suggest code snippets based on vast libraries of open source code. So even when developers think they're writing custom code, they might be inadvertently incorporating open source patterns and practices. Now, let's talk numbers. According to the 9th annual State of Software Supply Chain report, our use of open source software is growing at an exponential rate. Last year, the number of download requests exceeded 4 trillion. That's trillion with a T. To put that into perspective, it's almost double the number from just 2 years ago. But here's where it gets concerning. Out of those 4 trillion requests, about 500 billion were for components with known risks. That's roughly 1 in 8 downloads that have one or more identified security vulnerabilities. It's like playing Russian roulette with your application security. Let's take a moment to revisit our friend Log4j. Remember that critical vulnerability we talked about earlier? Well, you think we'll have learned our lessons, right? Wrong. Today, about 35% of download requests from Log4j are still for vulnerable versions. That's 1 in 3 downloads. It's like we're handing out security breach invitations with every third Log4j download. So, why are we still downloading open source components with known risks, especially infamous ones like Log4j? I believe the root cause is a lack of awareness. Most organizations are simply unaware of their true open source consumption, especially when it comes to those sneaky transitive dependencies we talked about earlier. Now, don't get me wrong, open source software is fantastic. It drives innovation, speeds up development, and allows developers to stand on the shoulders of giants. But it's not without its costs. You have security risks. As we've discussed, open source components can introduce vulnerabilities into your applications. There's also licensing issues. Not all open source licenses are created equal. Some may have terms that conflict with your business model or intellectual property strategy. Maintenance overhead. When you use open source, you're also taking on the responsibility of keeping those components up to date and secure. And there's complexity. The more open source components you use, the more complex your dependency tree becomes, making it harder to manage and secure. So what can you do to manage your open source usage more effectively? Here are some best practices. First, maintain an inventory. Keep a comprehensive, up-to-date inventory of all open source components used in your applications. Implement automated scanning. Use SCA tools to automatically scan for vulnerabilities and licensing issues. Establish policies. Create clear policies around open source usage, including which licenses are acceptable and how to handle security updates. Educate your team. Ensure your developers understand the implications of using open source and how to do so responsibly. Lastly, monitor and update. Regularly monitor your open source components for new vulnerabilities and update them promptly when issues are found. We'll be diving deeper into each of these practices in future episodes. As we wrap up this episode of AppSec Unlocked, remember, open source software is a powerful tool that drives innovation and efficiency in software development. But with great power comes great responsibility. The key takeaway is this: you're probably using more open source than you realize. And that's okay. The goal isn't to eliminate open source, but to use it wisely and securely. By taking proactive steps to understand and manage your open source usage, you can harness its power while mitigating the associated risks. Thank you for tuning in to AppSec Unlocked. This is your host, Edwin Kwan. And remember, in the world of application security, what you don't know can hurt you. Stay curious, stay vigilant, and keep unlocking those abstract mysteries. Until next time.